Great. So good morning, everybody, and welcome to this, the first of 3 workshops we're running through the autumn, which is all about really helping remotivate your team and having some of those conversations that seem a bit more challenging. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Hedda. I think the vast majority of you on here do know who I am. Quick note about 3C, we're performance management specialists, and we help organizations make that whole complicated, messy thing that is performance management really work for them. And today is very, very much about conversations, because as lots of you have said to me in the past, and lots of people in HR and L&D and OD say, in the end, it's about getting people to have a conversation, whether that's about how they're feeling or what we need them to do or what their next career step is going to be. It's a series of conversations. So I'm going to share some slides with you during the session. We will share the slides with you afterwards. You can send for them, and you can pick up on lots of the information on our website, as there's always lots of other resources there. So I'm going to start off by just sharing the screen. There we go. So how to motivate your team. This is our first conversation. And we know that lots of you are having to support your colleagues who are trying to mix with hybrid and being on site and being off site, or being at multiple sites, and not quite knowing how to do all of that. So I hope what you'll get today is some things that are useful for you, and that for those of you who are in the HR and L&D space, you can share with colleagues. Just a little reminder of some of our clients. As always, our client base tends to be very much made up of people who have organizations where people are promoted on the strength of their professional or their academic or their technical skills, and not because they're great people managers. So you often end up with people managers who are not happy doing it. I don't know if any of you had a quick look. Some of you will have seen the names of your companies on there as we've updated that slide, but it's gone now. So this is what I'm going to share today, a little bit more about understanding the 3 known drivers of motivation. We'll be looking at actually some real questions that people can use to explore personal motivation, and we'll be looking at some conversation guides and applying some of those principles in practice. And I had muted everybody. Let me just go back to my participants list. Helen, you might be able to mute everyone from where you are. That would be great. Okay, so in the little corner here, you can see this is the front cover of my new book, The Performance Management Playbook. And in it, it's got 15 conversations that you can use I'm just going to have a click. I've got a lot of background noise coming through from somewhere. So I'm just going to have a little click on here and see what I can do to mute everybody. Mute everyone. Participants. I'm just trying to mute because I'm getting quite a lot of background noise here. Right, I think that's gone. Hopefully we can carry on. Right, okay. So the book is available from Waterstones on Amazon and all good bookshops, and lots of what I'm sharing is in the book today. All right, so off we go. Motivation 1 is people want to do a good job. Help me be great. Those of you who have done the studying will know that the formal word for this is often called mastery. It's the drive for excellence. It's the desire to do really, really well. And most people get up in the morning and want to do well. Not many of us actually get up and think, I want to do a really bad job today, right? That's not how most people come to work. That's not how your colleagues come to work. Even if your colleagues seem to come in feeling down and miserable and not necessarily up for a great day, they're not actively choosing to want to do a bad job, because for most of us, the natural human motivation is to want to do well. And why is that true? It's very simple, that being good at things is a pleasure and it makes us feel good. It is as simple as that. And that's why people often get frustrated at work, especially with new technologies that are coming on stream. I was in a session yesterday with a client, and somebody was trying to do breakout rooms on Teams for the first time. And, she's quite a senior person, and she had the control of the meeting, so she had to do it. And she got incredibly, felt humiliated and distressed and embarrassed because she could not make the breakout rooms work on Teams. Now, I don't know if any of you struggled with breakout rooms on Teams. They're not the easiest thing to do breakout rooms on. It's a lot easier on Zoom, which is why we use Zoom where we can. But it's classic that not being good at something makes us feel bad. And the converse of that is we want to be good. We want things to be a pleasure. So one of the key questions is, how can we help people and teams feel that they are doing a good job? So even when somebody's struggling, as it was yesterday, to set out breakout rooms, once they've achieved that, it's possible during that process to say, it's all right, nobody's fretting, we're all sitting here, we're quite calm, but then also to give people praise for acquiring the skill over time. Now, I've put up some conversation tips here. Now, in the book, there's a full conversation guide, but obviously for here, I've just given some extracts. So here are some good questions about helping people explore what they like about the role. And these are questions that you don't have to be somebody's line manager to use. You can always use these questions with a colleague, or even if you're feeling down yourself, use these questions as a reflection. So what parts of your job actually make you feel good about yourself? So that may be some things that you have learned, or it may be some of the impacts that your job has. Many people in caring roles, the things that make them feel good are absolutely all about having the opportunity to impact someone else's life. It varies quite a lot as to what's really going to work for different people at different times, but what is it that makes people feel good about their job? And it might be, if you're thinking about that now, if you felt able to share in chat things that make you feel good about yourself, which parts of your job are, that might help other people on the call think about, are there things that make me feel good about my job? So do feel free to share some of those thoughts in chat if you want. Nobody has to share in chat. It's not a workshop. It's just an open session for us. But if you do feel able to share something, that might be interesting. And then it's worth exploring with people what they think they are particularly good at, and whether that is that they become a complete teams whiz and they know how to run teams brilliantly, or whether that's because they have a particular skill, or they feel very easily able to empathize with people. Whatever it is, thinking about what you're particularly good at is of itself a motivating conversation. And then you might want to explore with people some things that they might really value being better at. So are there some things that are really irritating them, that they feel are holding them back, that aren't maybe their main job, but it's just making them feel unskilled and useless? And can we tackle those things? So those are good opening questions. You don't want to do them all, but they're very useful opening questions to get people thinking about the good. How can I do a good job today? And then once you've opened that up, you need to get into the nitty-gritty and try to explore what it is that actually triggers the positive feelings. What actually is it that you're doing that when you may feel good? You know, what is it that job is? What does it feel like to actually experience those things? So ask people to get under the skin of, you know, oh, I like it a lot when I'm working with a patient. So what is it that you like about that? What are those feelings that are being triggered? What are the things that are happening in those conversations that are actually making you feel good? And similarly, what does it feel like to see the impact that you've had? Help people unpick and explore those things. Now, you might find yourself moving off into the area of what gets in the way, what are the roadblockers, and that might be an appropriate conversation to have. But sometimes motivational conversations need to focus on what is going well and what can we do to get more of that, and how can we understand better how to trigger our own good feelings, because part of the whole wellness and mindfulness agenda is what control we have in ourselves to trigger our own positive feelings. So that's the first section of tips. There's lots more around that topic in the book that you can go and look at. So the second one, motivation, is all about having control. Let me work it out. People come to work and they don't really want to be a machine. All right. Nobody wants to be a machine at work. Ironically, you know, even people who work on production lines where they're having to do some very basic repetitive things, even those people want some opportunity to think and talk about what they're doing. And that, as many of you who've worked in manufacturing will know, that part of the success of the whole Japanese continuous improvement program that became Kanban and quality circles and all of the movements towards better quality in manufacturing came from giving people whose jobs were perhaps very repetitive in a factory on a production line to sit back and think about, How could this be different? How could this be better? And today we have very similar things. So, you know, a receptionist can sometimes feel like they're a machine just processing pieces of paper. Someone working in a contact center might feel like they're just a machine. Someone sitting doing data processing might feel like they're just sitting being a machine. Finding opportunities to help people not just feel like a machine is really important. The next thing we need to do is to let people try things out without punishing them for their successes or their mistakes. So if they can't try things out, they can't learn. And if you think about your theory about one of the biggest personal drivers of high performance is the ability to learn from experience. And if we don't give people a chance to try things out, we don't give them a chance to learn from experience. So autonomy is actually very closely linked to high performance. Is where the motivation and the high performance come together, because if I have some autonomy, I can think about how I might do things, I can try things out, I can see what works, and then I can learn from that. And those two things become a virtuous circle and make us all feel better about what we're doing. So if you're giving people autonomy, you need to be clear what level of autonomy you're giving them in order not to have a situation where they make mistakes that are actually quite bad and difficult for the organization. And we're going to look at a little tool to do that in just a moment. But let's do one more thing here. As I've said, encouraging people to think brings huge benefits. Now, I don't know if you know, when IBM first came to this country, it was one of the first organizations to think about corporate values, even before we had the idea of corporate values as a thing. And all over their offices were big, big, big posters written in the bold IBM blue. And all those posters said was think, right? And encouraging people to think brings huge benefits. And I know I have said, you know, when I'm managing teams, that sometimes I feel like everybody left their common sense in the car park, you know, and they didn't bring any common sense with them to work. But we do need to encourage people to think, and we need to give them time and space to slow down and think about things. And I know in the last year, for many of you, that's been really hard because people have been working flat out and there's been no time to think about anything. But as we move into hybrid working, as we move into different environments, having the chance to think about how things might be different in the future, how we might need to adapt our work, just having time to think things through is going to be hugely motivating, rather than telling people, right, you're back in the office, go, 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 start. And again, that's very demotivating to people because they're in slight shock from the change of environment and they need the time to think. So, but we need to be careful. So managers panic around autonomy because they feel that too much autonomy means they lose control. So here's a little extract from a little toolkit that's also in the book that talks about when you can reduce oversight, but reduce autonomy or increase autonomy, and when you can increase oversight. And you can read this for yourselves, but you know, you need to increase oversight when mistakes can't be easily rectified, when mistakes are going to have a huge impact, and when your people are making big decisions or key choices. So sometimes you can increase oversight while increasing autonomy. And that is effectively, if you think about it, what happens at the most senior level in an organization. So a board of directors or a board of trustees or a governance board has to give oversight to the executive team, the senior executive team. They have to give oversight. But they also have to give a lot of autonomy because obviously the executive team is running the show. But big errors at the executive team level can have major impacts and may not be easy to rectify later. So part of the job at the most high level is for a board of governors to manage the kind of autonomy that they give the chief exec and the senior management team. So if it works at that level, it works right down at a frontline supervisor level, helping a supervisor understand what mistakes it's possible for people to make and that they can learn from, and that they will perhaps benefit from making a few mistakes and moving forward, and what mistakes you really don't want to happen and where you do need to have tight oversight. Now, we've also put down some situations. If you look in the bottom left-hand box, there's the box where you both increase oversight and you reduce autonomy. So you're basically giving people less control over their lives. And that's a situation when you've got a lot of problems, perhaps with individual performance. So performance is falling, you've got trouble with things like absenteeism or careless mistakes, and there's not much room for error. The other time that you do that is when you're going through very rapid change. When you're going through very rapid change, it's easy to leave people alone and just tell them to get on in the new situation. But actually, that's when things can spiral out of control. So when you've got very rapid change going on, you do need to increase your oversight, and you may or may not need to give people more or less autonomy. So this is quite a complex subject, but it's well worth sharing. And the full model is in the book, aspects of this model with your people as you come back from, a home working into a hybrid environment, because in a hybrid environment, people have, are they going to have more autonomy, less autonomy? Are you going to increase oversight? Are you going to decrease it? Just because they're in the office, are you actually having more oversight over them, or are you not? And what does that look like? What happens if they're not in the office on the same day that you are? So this is a really important topic for opening up around hybrid working at the moment. All right, I'm going to move on to the third subject, because as always, time is very tight here. Any questions, do put them in the chat. So the third question is, why am I working here? This is all about our purpose. What's going on? So we call this formally purpose, but it's really the answer to the question of what am I doing here? What's in this place for me? And this is where it's worth remembering that people had a reason for accepting a job offer. Now, in some situations, it may have felt like Hobson's choice. This was the only offer they had, and whether they liked it or not, they needed the work, so they took it. But the reality, if you talk to the vast majority of employees, is that that's not really the case, that they had a reason for accepting the job offer. And maybe inertia has stopped them leaving, but nonetheless, we need to go back and understand that. And they had a reason for accepting the job offer because they had an expectation about what the role and their experience of the work would be. So people always join, as I'm sure all of you did, with some kind of expectation of what was going to happen. But what's really interesting is that we very, very rarely discuss that, other than perhaps in the very first meeting we have with them after they've joined, or maybe we only discuss it with them at the last hire meeting. Why would you like to join here? What's your expectations? And then whatever they say, you might have said yes in order to get them to say that they would join. And there they are. And so it's quite interesting that we don't discuss why people joined or what they expected, and how the organization has been able to help them achieve those things that they expected to achieve, whatever they were, and whether their expectations of the role have been met in quite a complex way. So this is a very useful conversation to re-engage people who seem to have kind of drifted mentally away, who don't seem focused on the work, who are thinking about other things. Especially it's a useful conversation if you think somebody might be thinking of leaving, and you can perhaps preempt that by rekindling what made them join in the first place, and you and them working out how they might stay. So here are again some selections of ideas for how to open up this conversation. So some ideas about thinking about, has the role literally lived up to their expectations, and what have been their best times? And then some very classic questions about what would you like to get out of your next year here. But it's good if you've started the conversation by getting them to think back to why they joined in the first place. And then, all right, if that's 20 years ago, maybe it's a slightly different question. But then you could say, why are you still here? What is it that you'd like out of staying here that we can help you move forward with? And then lastly, on those opening up questions, it's about helping them think forward. If you have those experiences that you want, if you achieve those expectations, what will that mean? And then on the right hand side here, you can see the focus on the nitty gritty questions where you can really help get under the skin of what's going on for them in their purpose now. And we know that purpose is a huge driver of motivation, but quite often managers kind of have one or two of these questions and then move on fast because they go, oh yeah, no, we all remember why you joined. That's fine, lovely. Let's move on to, you know, what your current objectives are. And actually taking a little bit of time to use some of these questions on the right hand side to really probe around what would tick their boxes is a great way of re-engaging people. And I think right now, as people are in a moment of big flux, you know, there are more than a million jobs available at the moment. And yes, not everybody has the freedom to move everywhere, but many organizations are struggling to hire people like project managers, to hire tech support. One of my clients in the Northeast, half their credit risk team have just been poached by a London bank, being paid London salaries, but living in the Northeast. You know, there are big challenges facing us all as employers to retain the good people we've got in an environment where it's actually quite hard to recruit a lot of talented people at the moment. And lower down, where perhaps we've got frontline staff, we all know that, you know, everybody's trying to hire chefs, everybody's trying to hire drivers. You know, even in this town here, people can't get enough people to work in the shops. The underlying motivations need really exploring in some depth. Okay, all right, I've witted on for 25 minutes. So if you want to know more, here's the book that I've been writing for the last goodness knows how long. I actually finished the text last November, but publishing being what it is, it was actually published in August. There's more about each of these conversations in the book. You can order, it's available as an ebook and a hard text at Amazon, at Waterstones, and of course lots of other book stockists as well.